Hi, it's Sylvester, and it's been almost 2 years since my chest masculinization surgery. If you don't know, I'm a trans man, and I had my chest masculinized. I had my breast removed in 2023. It's not quite the 2 year anniversary yet. It was a Friday the 13th when I got the surgery done, so January 13th is the anniversary. I'm a little bit early, but I don't think it really matters. I made a video last year talking about the surgery and showing pictures, and in that video, I was not in a good place mentally. This time last year, I was suffering a lot because of my mental health. I don't know if I was on medication yet, but I was just really tired and really angry and really sad. And if you look back at that old video, you'll see that I was just not in a good place. It's very apparent.
Hi, I'm Sylvester, and I'm in a bad mood today, but I am perpetually in a bad mood. And it has been a year since I had chest surgery, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Also, you'll notice that I was a lot skinnier. I wasn't skinnier because I was healthier. I was skinnier because I had a mental breakdown. It was not a healthy kind of skinny. And I also had red hair, which I think looked kind of good. Maybe I'll dye my hair red again. Who knows? But in that video, I'm just very sad and defeated. And I talk about how being trans is traumatic. And it's hard to understand what I'm saying in that video because I kind of like slur my words. I mumble. I don't enunciate. And so, I was just too sad and too depressed to pronounce my words correctly. So I did say, though, that being trans is traumatic. Trans is trauma. And I do stand by that. I think that a lot of YouTubers, a lot of trans YouTubers, try to be super positive and they try to sugarcoat things and they try to act like being trans isn't as traumatic of an experience as it actually is. Being trans is genuinely or can genuinely be very traumatic. From the transphobia that you face from society to the gender dysphoria that you face in your body. And it's a very difficult thing. Being trans is very difficult, and going through chest surgery was a very difficult thing for me to do. It took a lot out of me. I had to go through it basically alone. I didn't have any family in my life at the time. I barely had any friends. I didn't really have any friends, and so I pretty much had to go through it entirely alone. And I had to change my own bandages most of the time because even though nurses were supposed to come to my house to help me change my bandages, they were short staffed. There weren't enough nurses, so I had to change my own bandages and supply myself with bandages. I spent a lot of money on bandages, and I couldn't find any bandages that were big enough to cover the whole wound, so I had to tape smaller bandages together. And I remember so clearly that first time when I changed my bandage after the surgery. It hurt so much, and I almost passed out several times. It was just a lot to have to deal with all on my own, and the pain wasn't super bad, but I got sick after my surgery. I thought that it was the hydromorphone that they gave me, the painkillers. I thought that was making me sick, so I took them and I walked down to the pharmacy. It was like a 40-minute walk, but it was the only pharmacy that was open, and I just was determined to get rid of these pills because I thought they were making me sick. And I gave them to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist said, how long has it been since you had one of these pills? And I said, like, I don't know, 6 hours or something like that. And she's like, then that's not what's making you sick. But I gave up the pills anyways. I'm like, whatever. Every time I take these pills, I feel like it's making me sick. So just take these pills. But I just felt like really, really sick after my surgery. And so I think maybe I got the flu or a bad cold or something, but it was not a fun experience. I don't think it was actually the hydromorphone that was causing me to be sick, but at the time I kind of convinced myself that it was. So I gave up the painkillers that they gave me, and I was just on Tylenol, and so I had to take Tylenol like every 2 hours or something like that, and it didn't really fully get rid of the pain. And one of the worst parts about having chest surgery was having to sleep on my back. I'm a stomach sleeper, and it was really difficult for me to fall asleep in any other position, and so trying to sleep on my back was a pain in the ass. And as soon as I hit like the 6-week mark or whenever I was allowed to finally start sleeping on my stomach again, that was like immediately I was like, yes, I'm so happy that I don't have to sleep on my back anymore. It was painful. I had some complications. I got a hematoma. The doctor drained the hematoma without giving me any painkillers whatsoever. No numbing cream, no Tylenol, nothing. He just cut into me with a scalpel and squeezed the blood out of me, and then a nurse came and shoved gauze in the hole, and it was so painful. I swear I passed out. Like, it was just so, it was the most pain I've ever been in my entire, well, actually no, later on I was in even more pain because I got gastroenteritis, and I had like really, really bad heartburn. It felt like somebody took a very hot coal or like something that's like a piece of metal that's like glowing hot, and they set it on my chest, and it just slowly burned through my body. Like, that was the most pain I've ever been in. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I had the hematoma, and then the hematoma got infected, and like, by the way, this whole time, like, I was struggling with the nurses that I would see, because they were supposed to come to my house, but there weren't enough nurses to do that. So I had to go take a cab to the clinic, spent so much money on cab money, going to and from these clinics to see the nurses. And the nurses were, a lot of them were just so rude to me for no apparent reason whatsoever, and they just treated me like garbage, and they were just really rough with me, and a lot of them had never seen this surgery before, and so they didn't really know what they were doing. Like, when it came to putting bandages on the nipples, they had no idea how to treat my nipple grafts, and they'd put like twice I had nurses put medical tape directly over the open wound that was my nipple graft, and like it was actively bleeding, and they put medical tape over top of it. Like they just didn't know what they were doing. The nurses were so mean to me for no reason. It was just an awful experience. And then when I had the hematoma and they put gauze inside of me, it hurt so bad. And then I was supposed to see the nurse to have them take the gauze out, but I couldn't get an appointment, so I had to go to the emergency room and have them take the gauze out. And I begged them, please don't put more gauze in. And luckily, they actually gave me a shot of hydromorphone. They gave me a painkiller before they took the gauze out when I was at the ER. And the next time I saw my doctor, I'm like, you cut into me to drain my hematoma. You just took a scalpel, cut into me, took a pair of like scissors and widened the hole, and then squeezed blood out of me without any kind of painkillers. Like, why didn't you give me any painkillers? And he's like, we don't have any in the clinic. And I'm like, there's an emergency room right downstairs. You could have went and like grabbed some hydromorphone or like some kind of painkiller. You could have but I was so mad at him for that. I was so mad at him for that. And then the hematoma hole got infected, and so I had to take these antibiotics that caused me to have an allergic reaction. Not an allergic reaction. They told me it's just a reaction. It wasn't an allergy. It was just a reaction that can sometimes happen with this medication. And my whole body turned red. It felt like my skin was sunburnt. It was very uncomfortable. And then I got gastroenteritis and pneumonia at the same time. Had to be hospitalized twice, and that was the worst pain I'd ever been in. Was the heartburn. It was so bad. It really felt like someone was burning through my body. Like, there was like something burning through me. It was just like, it was really, really bad. It was the worst pain I'd ever been in. And mind you, again, I had just been cut into with a scalpel with no painkillers, and yet this was the worst pain. This gastroenteritis was the worst pain I'd ever been through. And so like it was just a lot. And the gastroenteritis doesn't really have much to do with the chest surgery, but it happened like right at the tail end of my healing journey, and so it feels kind of like it's part of the chest surgery experience, just because like I had just gotten over healing from chest surgery, and then suddenly I get this horrible, painful illness, and it was just a really fucked up experience. And then the rest of 2023, I had this bad mental breakdown. I was screaming at voices in my own head in my apartment every single day, just having arguments with people who weren't there, and I was just in a really, really bad place. And I look back at some of the after photos that I showed in that video, and a lot of them, I wasn't really even trying to show off my chest. I was just trying to show off how skinny I was, because even though I wasn't healthy at the time, it wasn't healthy for me to be that skinny, because I was just not eating because I was having a mental breakdown. I still really liked the way I looked, and I know it's bad. I know I shouldn't glorify being skinny when it's unhealthy, because like skinny doesn't equal healthy, and I can attest to that firsthand, because I was not healthy, but I was skinny. And so I think I'm a lot healthier now, even though I'm overweight. But I look back on those old photos when I was skinny, and it makes me want to look like that again. Like, I thought that I just looked so good. I really, really liked how my body looked, but again, I only looked like that because I was having a mental breakdown and wasn't eating. But we're not talking about body confidence. We're not talking about skinniness. We are talking about chest surgery. So I guess I'll show you what my chest looks like now after 2 years. Again, I'm sorry that I don't have my HD camera anymore. I mean, I still have it, but it doesn't really work. So, I mean, the camera works, it's just the battery doesn't really work. Whatever. The point is, I'm sorry that I'm using a bad quality camera, but hopefully you can see anyways. The nipples, I was certain when I looked at, if you go back and watch that video that I made last year, the nipples looked real rough. The nipple grafts looked like they had failed, and I was certain that they had failed, and I asked my doctor and he said they had 80% failed. So according to him, there is some live active nipple tissue that was grafted onto my chest, but to me they just look like scars. But I like how they look. I really don't mind how it looks. I think that they look like nipples from afar. Like, if you don't look too close and realize that they're just scar tissue, they do look like nipples. They really, really do. And so I am pretty happy with how the nipples turned out. I was really upset after the surgery because I thought that the doctor put my nipples too far apart. I don't mind the placement anymore. It doesn't really bother me, but for like a while there, I'd look at my chest and be like, why are my nipples social distancing? This is like, they should not be this far apart. And so I really hated how far apart he put my nipples. But again, now I don't really mind anymore. And the scar is barely visible. I mean, it helps that I have a lot of body hair that kind of sort of camouflages it, but as you can probably maybe see, there's like you barely any scar tissue. Like, you can hardly see it. And I didn't use any scar cream. I didn't use anything to try to minimize the scar. It's just I'm very lucky, and scars just kind of don't look that apparent on me. And so, yeah, that's how my chest looks 2 years later. I really like the result. I said in the video I made last year that I don't like looking at the scars on my chest because it reminds me of the trauma that is being trans. And I think that was a little bit dramatic. I can look at my chest scars now, and I'm not triggered. I'm not reminded of all the pain that I went through. Instead, I feel kind of like a badass, like they are battle scars, you know? So yeah, overall, I really, really like how the surgery turned out. It was a very painful and unpleasant experience, but I got through it, and I think it was worth it. And I am very, very lucky that I live in a country where chest surgery is paid for by the government for me. Like, I didn't have to pay for it. I'm very, very lucky that I was able to access chest surgery at all. I did have to fight quite a bit to get the chest surgery. It took me 2 years to get onto a waiting list, and then another 2 years of being on a waiting list. And then when I finally got my consultation with the surgeon, he said, why don't you think about it a little bit more? And he refused to give me a surgery date. And so I had to like call the nurse over, the secretary or whatever, over and over, to call his office over and over and over again until somebody finally picked up and was like, I just give me a surgery date. I don't want a second consultation. I've waited 2 years for this surgery. Technically, I've waited 4 years for this surgery because it took me 2 years to be put on a waiting list. Like, please, I want this surgery. I'm certain that I want this surgery. I need this surgery. Please give me a surgery date. And so I had to fight to get a surgery date, and I finally did. And so it wasn't easy. This wasn't just handed to me. By no means was this just handed to me. And then the day before my surgery, I had a friend ask me if the surgery was going to be covered by the government because it's cosmetic. And that really, really pissed me off, because it's like, to me, it's not just a cosmetic surgery. To call it cosmetic feels insulting. Like, you're saying that it's just like, oh, I don't like the way my body looks, so I'm just going to have it altered. Like, it wasn't that. It was genuine, really bad gender dysphoria. This wasn't I mean, technically it was a cosmetic surgery, but I don't view it as a cosmetic surgery. It's a medical treatment for gender dysphoria. That's how I view it. And it was a medically necessary surgery in my mind. And so I got kind of mad at that person, and we got into a bit of a fight over that. I really don't consider it to be cosmetic. I needed this surgery. I actually needed this surgery. And a lot of people didn't realize how bad my gender dysphoria was around my chest, like how much I wanted and needed my boobs to be gone, because I would make these stupid drag videos where I would have my cleavage out and I'd have my boobs out, and like, I was just trying to make a good thing come out of a bad thing. I was just trying to make the best out of a bad situation. Like, if I have to have boobs, then I might as well show them off and get some views on YouTube for it. Like, that was my reasoning. And I like looking at boobs. So if I did a drag video, I could kind of separate myself from the person I was seeing on screen and enjoy my breasts as if it was someone else's breasts, because I like boobs. I do. I just didn't like having them, So it was just like, it's hard to explain, but it was a coping mechanism. Making these drag videos with my boobs out was a coping mechanism to try to cope with the gender dysphoria that I felt around my chest. And I hated wearing binders. They were so uncomfortable. It made me feel like I was wearing a bra. It just made my gender dysphoria worse. And I'm so glad that I don't have to wear a binder anymore. Every once in a while, like in the summertime, in the wintertime, I could kind of hide my boobs a little bit because I have this like very oversized coat, and the coat was so big that if I didn't wear a binder, you couldn't really tell that I had breasts because the coat was just so big and baggy. So in the wintertime, I often didn't wear a binder, but in the summertime, I had to wear a binder because I didn't have a coat to hide behind. And so now sometimes in the summer, I'll just be walking around and think to myself, wait, I'm wearing a tight shirt, I'm walking around in public, and I'm not wearing a binder. This is awesome. I didn't have to put a binder on before I left the house. Like, it really can't be overstated how good it feels to not have breasts. It really saved my life in a lot of ways, and it was very challenging, but it was very, very worth it, I believe. So yeah, I look back on the video that I made last year, and I was a real downer. I was in a really, really bad place. I'm in a much better place now than I was this time last year, and I'm very thankful and grateful for that. But like I said, that video, I was just really, really suffering and not in a good place at all. And so I'm happy that I'm able to look back on my chest surgery now and not feel triggered and upset. I'm able to look back on it and realize that it was something that was bad but very necessary, and something that really improved my quality of life. And so I am very grateful. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Stay frosty. Let me know in the comments if you think I should dye my hair red again. I'm thinking about it. Bye.